welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan. In today's video we are going to be going over my 25 books that I want to read in 2025. Now I do have an overarching goal that I want to read my entire TBR in 2025, so you know it is doable. It comes out to about 12 books a month, so you know it's doable, so hopefully that means all of these books will be read. But if I fail at that goal, these are the 25 books I want to prioritize for the new year. Plus I just think it's fun. I love the alliteration of it. 25 books to read in 2025. I just love it. Okay, let's get into it. Starting with the first book on my list, which is A Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. This book I put in my January TBR video, so this one should definitely get read. This is just a popular romantasy novel that I bought into the hype, and I bought it because everybody was talking about it, and I personally have no idea what it is about, but I don't want to let it become one of those books that I buy based on hype and then they sit on my shelves forever. This is one I'm going to be prioritizing. The next book I have is The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman. I have read the first two books in the Thursday Murder Club series and I really enjoyed them, and now I need to continue on. The reason why I have been procrastinating on this is because I kind of wanted to do a reread of the first two before going into the third, but honestly that's not looking likely, so I just need to jump into it. I love the main characters of this book. You're following these four people who are part of this like retirement community who have the Thursday Murder Club where they solve mysteries. They're supposed to be cold cases, but some of them bleed into real life, and it's just very fun, very cozy, and has great found family elements to it as well. So this is going to be another book that I am adding to my 2025 TBR. Next, we have a range of genres here in the beginning, but honestly it's mostly fantasy, but I don't know why. The beginning is a variety. We have Code Name Verity by Elizabeth Wein. This is a YA historical fiction book. This is a book that has been on my TBR for a while. I thrifted it about a couple months ago, a year ago, I don't really remember, but this is a World War II novel, and what really has drawn me to this book is I saw a TikTok of a librarian talking about how this is the best book ever, it has a plot twist, and just like the way she spoke about this book and the excitement she had speaking about this book made me want to read it. So that is why. I've never heard anybody talk about this book. I know it won a medal, but it was really just this sweet old library talking about how much she loves this book. That's why I own it and it's on my TBR. Okay, so the next two books go together. They are taking up separate spots. I think we're on books, so these are books 4 and 5, but I'm going to talk about them at the same time because I have similar reasonings for them. They go together. That is Last Violent Call and Foul Heart Huntsman, both by Chloe Gong. I really enjoy Chloe Gong's writing. I read the first duology and then I read Foul Lady Fortune, but I have been procrastinating on both of these books because I honestly kind of forgot what happened in Foul Lady Fortune, and because I forgot, I'm procrastinating on reading these. So that is a theme with a lot of the fantasy sequels in here. So these ones I would really like to prioritize because I want to complete this series, because I know it'll just be a really fun time because I gave all of her books 5 stars so far. Moving on to the next book. This is a fantasy book, but this one is starting a series, and that is A Red Queen by Victoria Avard. This book I really want to read because I recently started following this author on TikTok and I just really like her. Like, I like her personality, I like her takes on things, I like her TikToks, so I need to support her work. I actually have had this whole series thrifted for a while now, but I haven't started reading it yet, so it's time to do it. This is such a popular YA fantasy series. I know it's kind of being talked about. There's a resurgence in its popularity recently because of all the controversy with Powerless that I've seen on my For You page, so honestly I kind of want to read them both and compare them, but let's start with Red Queen. I'm very excited to read this one. I want a good YA dystopian fantasy. Like, that is all I need in my life right now. Moving on to the next book, we have Heart of the Sun Warrior by Su Lin Tan. This is the sequel and finale to Daughter of the Moon Goddess. It is a duology similar to my Chloe Gong books. This one I bought when it released, but I have been putting it off simply because I forgot what happened in Daughter of the Moon Goddess and I don't really want to reread it. Maybe I'll listen to it via audio just to, like, you know, make the reread go by quicker, and then I will jump into this one. I really enjoyed Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I thought it was a really fun, whimsical, and beautiful lyrical fantasy novel, so I feel like this one should be really good as well. Moving on to a sci-fi book, we have Red Rising by Pierce Brown, and now I'm just realizing when I filmed my January TBR, one of my prompts was a sci-fi novel, and I was like, oh, I only own one sci-fi, and it was The Ministry of Time. I totally forgot I had Red Rising, which is why it really needs to be prioritized in 2025. This is a super popular sci-fi, adult sci-fi series that everybody talks about, everybody raves about. I have the first 3 books in the original trilogy, so it is my goal in 2025 to read that whole trilogy, but let's start with the first one, Red Rising. And the length is like good, you know what I mean? Like it's not too intimidating for a first book. Unlike this next book, this one intimidates me, which is why it's on the TBR, and that is Game of Thrones by George R.R. Martin. This is a very popular fantasy series, as everybody knows. Can you call yourself a fantasy reader without having read one of the most popular fantasy series in like the world? I have never watched the TV show. I've never read the books, never watched the TV show, but I would like to read the books. I really don't have interest in the show. I don't know why. I don't really enjoy watching fantasy, but I love to read fantasy. Like I love it in my mind, in my imagination, but like when I see it on screen, like I don't know, I just prefer a fantasy book to a fantasy movie. Is anyone else like that? So I'm very excited. This book intimidates me because I know there's going to be a lot of characters, a lot of political intrigue, and I just hope I can follow along and I don't get bored. I mean, I feel like it's hard to get bored in Game of Thrones because so much happens. Like I do know some things that happen in the show, like not like with specific characters, but general things people talk about. But I don't know, longer books intimidate me. I don't know why. Moving on, this is a long book, but it's 3 books in one. So, you know, we're putting the very first book on the TBR for 2025, and that is The Lord of the Rings, book 1. I don't even know what it's called, but I have the whole bind up edition. Like I don't know what edition this is. It's super cool. I thrifted it and I love it. Although when I get around to finally reading it, I saw the nerdy ink covers for the Lord of the Rings trilogy and I about died. Like they are so stinking cute. Like I need them for my shelves. Like if I want to inspire myself to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, like I need those nerdy ink covers. I saw them on the Raven-haired Readers channel and I fell in love. So I might go order those as a Christmas present to myself. So we have The Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit in 2024 and I really loved it. I don't remember what I rated it, 4 or 5 stars. I don't know. It was a really enjoyable experience. And since I read The Hobbit, I really want to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I've never seen the movies. I know absolutely nothing about this. I'm going into this completely blind, so I think that will be a very fun experience. I have talked about in many TBR videos, everybody knows the deal with this book, and that is City of Heavenly Fire by Cassandra Clare. This, similar to other books I've talked about, I'm procrastinating on because it has been a while since I read the previous books in the series. I forgot what happens, so I'm like nervous to go into this one because I'm going to forget things, I'm going to be confused, that's going to affect my enjoyment. So all of those reasons are why I'm procrastinating on this, but I kind of want to take this on vacation with me so I can just binge it. Just do it, just binge it, get out of the way. Like to make this the only book I bring on vacation so I force myself to read it. I'm very excited to see how the series concludes, but I definitely need to find some refreshers online so that I can get re-excited for this book. We have Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I have wanted to read this book ever since it came out, and it came out in 2020. And we're going into 2025, but I am not going to allow myself to feel bad because the author is releasing the 3rd book in this series in 2025. Okay, so like it's okay, I'm slow to read it because she's slow to release them. We have Legendborn. I also own Bloodmarked, it's on my shelf, and then Oathbound I believe comes out in March, April, March, springtime, sometime, I don't know. But this is, I believe it's kind of like dark academia, also an urban fantasy, meaning like it takes place in the real world. And yeah, I'm excited. I love academia. I love a fantasy that takes place in the real world. And I'm really excited. Plus this cover is gorgeous and I have heard nothing but positive things about this book. Moving on to the next one, another book I've had on the TBR for way too long, and that is Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This is a middle grade fantasy mystery series. I believe there's 3 books out in the series right now. This is a book that, even though it's middle grade, a lot of like fantasy YouTubers that I watch who read, you know, primarily adult fantasy love and rave about this book in this series, and I'm very excited to read it. I kind of forgot what it is about. Back in the day when I bought it, I could have told you what it is about, and now I have forgotten, which is fine. I will just go into it blind and have everything be a surprise. We have another fantasy read, but this one is a standalone and it's not thick, meaning it should not be on my TBR for this long because this doesn't intimidate me at all. I've just been pushing it off, and that is Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. I bought this when it released least, obviously, because I do have a signed edition of it that I got at Barnes & Noble. This is a cozy fantasy. I think it's very heartfelt, very similar vibes to House on the Cerulean Sea, which this author also wrote. I mean, similar vibes in the way where it's like heartfelt, cozy fantasy. In this book, you're following our main character, and I believe he dies, and he goes to this like cozy tea shop to kind of like pass on to the next phase of his journey, but he realized like, oh, I really didn't live with the life I was given on this planet. So the owner of the tea shop gives him 7 days on Earth to kind of live his life to the fullest. So it just sounds very heartfelt, very warming, like lots of life lessons will be learned. And I'm excited to read this one, so I just gotta do it. The reason I have been putting this off for so long is because I originally DNF'd The House on the Cerulean Sea. I ended up picking it back up, did a physical read of it versus audio, rated it 4 stars. So I don't know, that like experience has made me push this one off. The next 2 books I have are just going to take up 1 slot because it is Spy Family volumes 9 and 10. Honestly, every Spy Family volume that I am behind on, these are the ones that I own, but all of them that I am behind on, I would like to read in 2025. I love Spy Family. It is such a fun manga series, and it is one that I want to continue. I want to get caught up on. I want to know what happens next. There's things I'm waiting to happen in the series. I don't know if they've happened yet. I don't want to be spoiled. So in this book, you're following our main character, Anya. I think her name's Anya, right? And she is a telepath, so she can read people's minds, and she gets adopted by this man named Lloyd, who's a spy, and he needs to adopt a daughter so he could get into this private school to get to his target. So he needs to quickly marry somebody, adopt a daughter, so he can create this fake family. So he meets this this woman who is an assassin, and so their lives are all secret, right? No one knows Anya is a telepath. No one knows Lloyd is a spy. No one knows the mom is a secret assassin, but the daughter Anya, she knows it all because she can read minds. She's like, I know I know you're an assassin, I know you're a spy, and I know you guys don't know about each other. So it is really cute. It's a really nice found family elements to it. It's just a really fun action. Everything about it I love and devour, and rated so many of these volumes 5 stars. So love, love, love Spy Family, and I'm very excited to continue. Moving on to continuing series, we have Heir of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I don't know why, like the hype of Sarah J. Maas has not hit me yet. I have read Throne of Glass, I read Crown of Midnight. They were good, they were okay. I'm not living and laughing and loving yet, but I heard Heir of Fire is where everything turns around. So I am waiting for Heir of Fire to kind of change my mind on Sarah J. Maas. So I have Heir of Fire here, and I want to read it and the rest of the Throne of Glass series in 2025. Another Sarah J. Maas book on my TBR, I have Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood. As you can see, I have been currently reading it for a while. I DNF'd it at page 153, which is chapter 14. There's no negative reason as to why I DNF'd this book. I actually was enjoying this book, but I'm a really big mood reader, and that's the problem with fantasy is like I'll start reading a book but they're really long and I'm a mood reader. So if in the middle of the book I'm like kind of over it, I'll just put it down and then just like never pick it up again. And that's sadly what happened to this book. So yeah, and now I kind of forgot what happened in those first 150 pages. Gosh, why do I do this to myself? Because now I'm procrastinating on it because I kind of forgot what happens. I'm not super inspired to really finish this series like I am ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, because I've actually heard a lot of negative things about the 3rd book in this series, and these are really thick books, especially the 2nd and the 3rd book. And for people to have negative reviews of books that are like 1,000 pages long, you're not inspiring confidence. But everybody does love Crescent City, and so far I've been entertained, so I really need to finish this in 2025. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about at once because they're by the same author, but they're taking up separate spots in this 25 books I want to read in 2025. So we have a Circe and A Song of Achilles, both by Madeline Miller. I have this one. I thrifted a really cool hardcover edition. I would love to come across this in hardcover one day. So we have Circe. Don't know what it's about other than our main character Circe and A Song of Achilles, which I also don't know what it is about, but I know there is so much hype around Madeline Miller, so I would love, love, love to read these in 2025. The reason why I've been putting these books off, because they have been on my TBR for a while, is because so many people love them, and I just assume that I'm going to love them. Like, I already assume The Song of Achilles is going to be a 5-star read for me, so it's kind of like, okay, well, I know how that's going to turn out, so I can like push it away. Like, I can read something else because like I know how it's going to turn out. Like, I don't know the plot, I don't know anything that's going to happen, but like I have an idea that I'm going to rate it 5 stars. So I don't know if that logic makes sense to anybody else, but because I kind of feel like I know my rating for these books without having read them, I've been pushing them off. But we're not doing that in 2025, we're reading them in 2025. Okay, the next book I have is Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This will start of my Realm of the Elderling journey. I would love to read the Cosmere in 2025, the Realm of the Elderling. There's so many things I want to read, right? I'm trying to cram it all into 2025, not really realistic, but I can at least start my journey. And that is, we start with Assassin's Apprentice, and I don't really know what this is about. I know it is a fantasy series that so many people love. It's very beloved, and it is a very character-based fantasy series, and we're following this character throughout all the different trilogies from when he is a child to adulthood, and that sounds really fun. Every time I've seen somebody talk about this in a wrap-up, seen it in a reading vlog, everybody gives this really high praise. So it's just one of those fantasy series that you have to read, right? Like if you're a fantasy girly, you have to read Robin Hobb at some point in your life. The next book we have is Fear the Flames by Olivia Rose Darling. This is a book I bought based on the hype. Everybody loves it, raves about it. It's a really pretty cover as well, and I just had no restraint in Barnes & Noble, so I'm putting it on this list because, again, I don't want those books that I buy just based on hype to end up sitting on my shelves. I want to actually read them. So many times the books will sit on my shelves and then I'll revisit them a couple months later, and no, read things when you buy them. That is the mantra for 2025. Hence, this is going on the 25 books I need to read in 2025 list. Okay, the next book I have is A Conjuring of Light by V.E. Schwab. This was actually in my November TBR, never got around to reading it. It's a thick one. This is the ending of a Darker Shaded Magic series. I have been putting this off because I rated the first one 4 stars, I rated the second one 3 stars, and then I was just not in the mood to read the last one. And then so much time had passed that I just never wanted to pick it up. And you know, if I didn't purchase the whole series at once, I kind of would be content with just having read the first 2 books. Like, I don't really feel the need to read this book, but because I own it, I feel the need to complete the series and read it because I own it. But if I didn't own it, I would be happy with the first 2, but I own it, we're reading it, we're going to complete it in 2025. And for the very last book, my 25th book on my 25 books to read in 2025 is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. And in a very embarrassing fact, I have not read any books in the Cosmere in 2024. I don't know what happened. I read Mistborn and Trust the Emerald Sea in 2023 and really, really loved them, and then just for some reason never continued my Brandon Sanderson journey. I never continued my Brandon Sanderson journey in 2024. Why? Why did I do that? I don't really know. But I am going to be reading The Well of Ascension in 2025. I am very excited to continue on in the Cosmere, and this is the next book. I'm going to want to read the original trilogy. I actually have in my book journal, like, all the books written out in the order I need to read them in, because I've been reading all these different vlogs on how best to read Brandon Sanderson. I have my order written down, and I would like to get through this one, finish the trilogy, and then maybe move on to like the next book I have to read in the broader series. So this is the last book though. This is the book that's going on the official TBR list for 2025. Those are all the books that I plan to read in the year of 2025. I feel like I've said that so much like in the past couple minutes. I am so excited to read all of these books. I feel like I have some really great ones on here. It is very fantasy heavy. So we are gonna have a very fantasy heavy 2025 because I actually want to read every book on my physical TBR. So that is it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what your 25 books to read in 2025 are in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!